California, late 1960s. Streets empty but tense. Police sirens wail in the distance that night. A silhouette moves under a blinking streetlight. People call him Zodiac in his letters. He writes to newspapers with codes and threats. His notes create panic across cities and towns. The attacks begin at lonely picnic spots. Young couples parked in their cars are targeted. Sometimes he shoots without warning, and sometimes stabs quietly. Bodies are left where lovers once kissed. He signs letters with a circle and cross symbol. Investigators call him Zodiac in return. His letters are full of puzzles. One cipher takes decades to partly solve. Another long cipher resists solution for years. He claims many victims he never proves. Sometimes he brags about killing and escaping capture. He mocks detectives in printed type and handwriting. The letters feel personal and calculated at once. Entire towns change routines overnight from fear. Parents keep kids home after dark for months. Couples avoid lonely roads and park lights. Police create task forces and follow tips. They chase leads that quickly go cold. Witnesses give different descriptions of the killer. Some say tall, some say average height. One night he kills a taxi driver in San Francisco. That murder brings him to a whole new level. The city streets tighten and the papers explode. The public reads his handwriting like crime theater. He writes to taunt with puzzles and threats. Some letters claim credit for unsolved deaths. Others demand attention with maps and diagrams. The codes capture amateur sleuths across the country. They trade theories in basements and diners. One cipher finally reveals a small message, but the language and names leave gaps. Detectives test suspects and sift evidence. Some leads look promising, then collapse. DNA science decades later gives new hints. Still, no single answer satisfies everyone. The case grows into a legend of fear. Local stores sell t-shirts with the symbol. True crime fans study the letters bars like gospel. Podcasts and forums argue over every clue. At heart, many families still have questions. They lost someone in quiet spots at night. Some names fade, but grief does not disappear. The killer's bravado keeps the pain alive. Officials sometimes worry media attention hinders work. Other times, attention brings new tips. Every few years, someone claims proof. Those claims rarely stand up in court. The mystery keeps feeding itself decade after decade. Some detectives call it the perfect cold case. Perfect because the truth hides in plain sight. Witnesses remember small details differently with time. Yellowed paper and old typefaces make letters look older. Yet the words are sharp and cruel. A simple sentence can ruin a life. He promised to collect slaves for his afterlife. That line made headlines and scared readers. Police pore over handwriting and fingerprints. They trace phone calls and cross-check alibis. Some officers suspect local men while others disagree. Decades pass without a final arrest. Files sit in boxes at police stations. New technology opens doors once closed tight, but each new method brings fresh controversy. Families want answers more than anyone else. They live with a hole that never fills. The Zodiac's real name may never be known, and yet the letters still arrive in memory. We study the ciphers like relics in science. We teach new detectives what the old ones missed. Sometimes a cold case becomes warm again, but many mysteries are stubborn and quiet. This story is one of those stubborn mysteries. The Zodiac made killing into a game. He used letters to control fear and headlines. And after all these years, the terror remains. We cannot unsee the sentences he wrote. We cannot fully know the man behind them. But listening to the letters teaches caution. It teaches how small actions can lead to tragedy, And it reminds us grief never truly leaves. If you love someone, tell them before dark. Lock your doors, yes, but also listen. And remember that some puzzles have no answers. This is the true story of the Zodiac.
2 teenagers were killed that night, December 20th. It was late, cold, the kind of night you remember. They were alone in a parked car. They thought it would be a normal evening. Nobody was supposed to get hurt. Around 11 p.m., another vehicle rolled up. No one knows every detail of what happened next. Investigators later pieced things together. Their conclusion is grim and simple. The killer forced them out of the car. Then he opened fire. David Faraday died almost instantly. Betty Lou Jensen tried to get away. She ran. She was hit from behind. She was shot multiple times. The killer walked away into the dark. No one stopped him. No one chased him down. At first, police treated it like a local crime, a tragic night, a small-town murder. Detectives filed it away as random violence. Families mourned. Neighbors whispered. But the case didn't stay small for long. Other attacks followed in later years. Patterns showed up on scraps of letters, a taunting tone, a careful hand. The killings spread fear across Northern California. What began as one brutal night became part of something bigger. The phrase Zodiac didn't mean much at first. Then a caller claimed credit over the phone. Then letters arrived that claimed more. They boasted about crimes. They dared police to catch them. The tone felt different. It wasn't just anger, it was performance. Someone wanted attention. Someone wanted to be feared. The first attack set that pattern. 2 teenagers, a lonely road. A killer who left with no trace. For investigators, it was maddening. Witnesses remembered headlights, a distant engine, a car that left too slowly. But eyewitness reports were fuzzy. Night, cold, fear. Memories blurred at the edges. That made the job harder. Forensic science in 1968 was limited. No DNA databases to cross-check. Shoe prints and bullets mattered more then. Detectives followed leads that died quickly. Tips dried up. Suspects came and went. The killer stayed hidden. For the families, there was no closure. Every year brought new questions. Every anniversary reopened old wounds. Betty Lou's parents never stopped asking why. David's family kept looking for answers. The community wanted someone held accountable. People wanted to feel safe again. Instead, most nights felt dangerous. Teenagers stopped parking alone. Couples canceled late drives. Simple date night could feel risky. That was part of the violence. Fear changed behavior. Fear bent ordinary life. The killer knew that. The killer wanted that. Years later, the name Zodiac would circulate. Newspapers would print photos and handwriting samples. The public devoured every clue. Some thought it was one person. Others suspected more. Theories multiplied. Detectives chased many theories. Some suspects lived near the crime scenes. Others seemed impossible. Over time, technology improved. Cold evidence was tested again. DNA work brought occasional hope, but hard proof remained scarce. The case kept slipping away. The first attack stayed central. It was the night all the rest built from. It was the early proof of brutality. It showed a willingness to strike without warning. It showed a pattern that would repeat. That pattern turned into obsession for some investigators. They hunted for the smallest match. They compared handwriting like it was a fingerprint. They traced phone calls and letters. They checked alibis and travel logs. They wanted answers for Betty Lou and David. They wanted to stop another family from grieving. Decades passed. The story still draws people in. True crime buffs read old reports. Amateur sleuths re-examine every detail. New theories surface every few years. Some make sense, some do not. The core facts stay the same. 2 young people died on a cold December night. A killer walked away. The case left a scar on a region. It left a scar on the nation's sense of safety. And the person responsible kept talking with letters. He called the police after shooting them. It happened on July 4th, 1969. 7 months had passed since the first attack. They were at Blue Rock Springs Park. It was just after midnight. Darlene Ferrin sat in the passenger seat. Michael Maggio was behind the wheel. They were a young couple together that night. A car pulled up behind them. At first, they thought it was police. The driver got out holding a flashlight. He also held a gun in hand. No warning came before the shots. He fired at the car through glass. Bullets hit the windshield and shattered it. Michael took multiple gunshot wounds. Darlene suffered devastating injuries from the shots. The shooter walked away after firing. Seconds later, he returned to the car. He fired into the vehicle again. Darlene collapsed from her wounds. She died shortly after the attack. Michael did not die that night. He survived despite severe injuries. His description became the first real clue. He described a heavy-set white man. The man had very short-cut hair. He had a large face and build. He showed no visible emotion at all, calm and flat in his manner. Police would later record Michael's statements. The case file grew from that description. Less than an hour later, something else happened. The killer called the police himself. No one expected that phone call. It changed how investigators looked at the scene. Officers arrived and found 2 wounded people. Medical teams rushed to treat both victims. Darlene could not be saved. Michael was taken to the hospital. He had time to speak with detectives. His memory gave the first physical profile. The description matched nothing specific at first. Witness sketches were later made from his account. The town felt shaken by the attack. It was the 4th of July night. Fireworks were probably still echoing nearby. People were out in parks and streets. Many would later wonder why that car stopped, why a flashlight and a gun combined. The killer left no immediate explanation. He made a decision and acted quickly. His calmness added to the terror. The next hours filled investigators with questions. Did he know them beforehand or not? Did he plan this attack carefully? Or was it random and sudden? The phone call complicated the timeline. It suggested the shooter wanted attention or wanted to confuse the police instead. Detectives kept those ideas in mind. Reports were filed and witnesses interviewed. Statements overlapped in key details. The heavy-set build kept recurring often. Short hair showed up in most accounts. A large face was specifically mentioned several times. Calmness and lack of expression were noted. Michael could not identify a name. He could only give what he saw. That limited the immediate leads police had. The case would grow into something larger. It pulled detectives into long nights of work. For the families, it became a nightmare. They lost Darlene that night forever. Michael survived with scars for life. The phone call added a strange layer. Whoever made it showed no pity. Left people asking how and why. Years later, the details still mattered. The description from Michael kept investigators chasing leads.
3 newspapers received the same letter. It was 1969. The city had a name for fear. At 12:40 de la mañana, a man calls police dispatch. His voice is calm, cold-controlled. He gives the time of the shooting. He describes the scene in detail. He knows things the police do not. Then he says something else. He confesses to earlier murders, Lake Herman Road. He says, "I also killed those kids last year." He hangs up the phone. No background noise, no laughter, just the click of a line. 1 month later, letters arrive at 3 newspapers. Each one contains strange coded symbols. Each one starts the same way. This is the Zodiac speaking. The writer demands publication. "Put my code on the front page," he says, "or I will keep killing." The message is simple. The threat is specific. People read and fear the worst. Newspapers argue about responsibility. Editors debate whether to print. The killer sets the rules. America watches. Obsession spreads fast. Amateur sleuths and professionals respond. High school kids chase patterns. Teachers and housewives try substitution keys. The nation turns puzzles into prayers. Phone lines light up with tips. The police get overwhelmed. Reporters chase every rumor. The killer feeds it all. The cipher becomes a public problem. Each symbol looks harmless on paper. The meaning is anything but. Then, someone breaks part of it. A local couple cracks the code. They work late. They piece letters into words. The decoded phrase is simple and brutal. "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It lands like a stone. It changes everything." Up to that moment, he was one of many killers. After that sentence, he is something else. He is a voice in every corner. He is a challenge to the nation. He is a story. People can't stop reading. He writes again and again. Each letter has taunts and clues. He claims more crimes and gives new ciphers. Police try to trace mail. They look for fingerprints. They look for paper, postage, handwriting. Leads dry up. Tips flood in. None match for sure. The killer moves through the city like a rumor. He uses everyday places to hide. He uses ordinary phones to speak. He enjoys the attention a letter brings. He times his messages for maximum effect. He knows how news works. He shapes panic with careful words. People begin to change their routines. Couples stop late. Drives. Parents watch their children closely. The city gets quieter at night. Shops close earlier. A kind of suspicion settles over strangers. That is part of his design. He wants to be read and feared. He wants to be famous and out of reach. The decoded sentence makes doubt personal. If someone says they like killing, they become a force. The public stops thinking of causes. They think of motive. Motive becomes performance. The police response becomes a hunt for a showman. Detectives look for patterns in letters and crimes. They compare ink, paper, and phrasing. They test suspects and alibis. Sometimes they get close. Sometimes they think they are close. Always, he slips away. Years pass with more letters and silence. The letters sometimes repeat the same chilling phrase. They ask newspapers to publish his symbols and words. They promise more death if ignored. Fear becomes a currency. People argue about how to respond. Some want to give him no oxygen. Others feel forced to engage. The media keeps printing. The killer keeps writing. The letters become part taunt, part confession. The worst line sits on hospital walls and living room tables. Parents read it aloud to one another in disbelief. Detectives memorize it for interviews and reports. The public repeats it in whispers and headlines. It changes how people talk about evil. It changes how crime is covered on television. He succeeds in turning himself into a headline. That is where danger grows. A murderer is private. A headline is contagious. When a killer becomes news, copycats and myths follow. The Zodiac's letters make strangers into suspects. They make each parked car a threat. They make every late-night caller suspect. The police keep looking for a signature in paper and ink. They keep listening for the same calm voice on recordings. The voice is always collected. It refuses to panic. That steady tone becomes part of the crime. It tells you the person is deliberate. It tells you the person wants to be heard. The city learns vigilance the hard way. Years of clues and false leads leave a brittle patience. People stop assuming safety is permanent. They learn to lock doors and watch lights. They learn that words can wound like bullets. The final truth, never arrives for everyone. Some letters stop, others keep coming. The phrase stays in the public mind. It is read in classrooms and police stations. It is written on placards and in notebooks. He called, he spoke, he wrote, and for a long time, no one could make him stop.
He wrote dates on the car. The date is September 27th, 1969. This scene happens at Lake Berryessa. College couple relaxes near the water. They are young and they are careless. They hear footsteps before they see him. A man approaches with a hood. He wears an executioner-style mask. Dark clothes cover his body and form. A white crosshair sits on his chest. The symbol is carved into a message. He says he's an escaped prisoner today. He asks for money and a car. They believe him for a short moment. He ties them up with rope quickly. He forces them into a shallow struggle. Then the knife comes out and glints. He does not scream at all. He does not rush his brutal work. He stabs the man repeatedly without mercy. He stabs the woman slowly again and again. Each knife finds living flesh and bone. The movements are methodical and deliberate every time. The man survives by pretending to be dead. The woman does not survive that afternoon. He leaves without looking back at all. Before he goes, he walks to the car. He opens the door with bloody hands. He writes 3 dates on the door. They match other killings in the area. Then he draws his crosshair symbol clearly. It is neat and it is intentional. The symbol ties the attack to others. Investigators realize this was not random action. It was planned and oddly theatrical in scale. The killer is escalating his public message now. He wants attention and he wants control. He enjoys the fear he creates in people. Detectives treat this as something different now. They see a pattern and they see cruelty. Officers collect rope, blood, and footprints carefully. They interview witnesses who saw a hood nearby. They search the hills until complete sunset. They canvass the nearby roads for tracks. They do not find the attacker that day. The man's wounds are severe but stable. He gives a statement later the same day. His voice is thin and he smells of blood. He cannot forget the hooded face forever now. He cannot forget the symbol on the chest. The woman's name becomes part of a long list. The public reads about the dates on the car. People begin to panic at picnics and beaches. A simple afternoon feels suddenly dangerous to many. Friends stop meeting by water at dusk anymore. The killer changes how people live their lives. Families take extra keys on late nights out. The police step up patrols near lakes and parks. Reporters arrive with questions and cameras in tow. The case goes national in less than a week. Letters begin to reach newsrooms later that year. They claim responsibility using the same crosshair symbol. The writer sends puzzles and taunts to papers. Each new message adds panic and public confusion. The community learns to watch for hoods everywhere. They learn to watch for odd symbols too. Trust becomes fragile and easily broken between neighbors. Survivors say the most chilling part was simple. The killer spoke without emotion or visible regret. He explained his story before he attacked them. He lied about needing escape and money then. The lie was a setup for planned violence. He used casual words to disarm and confuse. That casual voice makes the attack worse today. It proves the danger of ordinary, friendly talk. Most killers do not brag this loudly anymore. This one wanted his deeds recorded and noticed. Writing dates on a car is proof of intent. It is a signature and also a direct taunt. Investigators now face a different kind of mind, one that plans public terror with careful detail. They will never fully understand its exact motive. They will only chase fragments and cryptic letters. But that day changes local life forever after. A picnic spot becomes a crime scene permanently, and a symbol becomes a warning to all people. People remember the white crosshair for many years. It haunts the case files and the headlines. The most normal afternoon turns into an avoidable tragedy. One woman dies while one man survives that day. A killer leaves his mark there on purpose. That small act stretches fear across a wide region. It makes people look twice at strangers nearby. It makes them lock car doors at dusk. It makes detectives question their old simple assumptions. The hooded man keeps walking away down the road. No one catches him that day or night. He leaves only dates, a symbol, and silence. He wrote dates on the car. The date is September 27, 1969. This scene happens at Lake Berryessa. A college couple relaxes near the water. They are young and they are careless. They hear footsteps before they see him. A man approaches with a hood. He wears an executioner-style mask. Dark clothes cover his body and form.
October 11th, 1969. A taxi driver is killed. San Francisco sleeps, or at least tries. Paul Stein is at work that night. He picks up a passenger in the city. Everything seems normal for a few minutes. Then the passenger shoots him in the head. The city has had killings before, but this one feels different immediately. It happens inside a busy neighborhood street. People lived and walked nearby. A witness sees a man leave the taxi. Officers are called and they start searching. They find the taxi under a street lamp. Blood stains the dashboard and the seat. The scene looks like a simple murder, but something else is happening at the same time. A nearby couple calls the police. They describe a man walking away from the car. He wears a light jacket and a cap. Officers head toward a nearby intersection. They see a man who matches the description. He sits on a short wall, calm. One officer approaches and talks with him. The man answers questions without panic. For a moment, it looks like a break. Then, a radio call changes everything fast. Dispatch describes a different suspect entirely. They say the killer is dark-skinned, so the officers release the man at the wall. No one sees the killer leave the area. The mistake will haunt the investigation. Days pass and the city waits for answers. Then, a letter arrives at a newspaper office. Inside is a small but shocking proof, a scrap of bloody cloth from the taxi. The killer sent it deliberately and coldly. That single act changes how people react. It proves the killer watched the case closely. It proves he could reach inside evidence. The tape of the investigation populates headlines. City streets feel watched and smaller now. Detectives scramble to connect dots they missed. Every clue becomes a potential lead. People call in tips or false alarms. The killer keeps sending letters and puzzles. He taunts police and the public openly. That bloody scrap becomes the proof many needed. It is a grim signature of his work. People start to lock doors earlier each night. Taxi drivers talk in small groups during shifts. Officers review procedure and radios for mistakes. They replay calls and mark timing errors. A communication error seems small on paper. On the street, it costs a life. People argue about race and policing loudly. The wrong description becomes a pivot point. Some say it ruined the only chance. Others point to broader failures in the system. But argument does not bring the dead back. The killer keeps controlling the narrative through mail. Each letter twists fear into something personal. The city wonders if he'll strike again. Parents keep younger children close at night. Drivers change routes and talk more often. Detectives chase leads that go cold quickly. The man at the wall stays a mystery. Some remember his face, others do not. Memory warps in the glare of fear. The bloody scrap becomes a permanent clue. It ties this murder to the other killings. Now investigators treat it as Zodiac's work. That label changes how the city reacts. Fear tightens and journalism chases every rumor. People look at strangers differently now. The police face public pressure and critique. They hope forensic science will offer answers later, but evidence handling in those days is limited, so the bloody scrap carries enormous weight. It becomes the linchpin for the case, yet the killer walks away from the scene. No one knows his name for years. The city keeps scanning faces in crowds. Every lead feels urgent and fragile now. People who lived through that night remember details. They tell how normal routines broke apart. A taxi ride became the place of murder, and a letter made the threat personal. October 11, 1969, a taxi driver is killed. San Francisco sleeps, or at least tries. Paul Stein is at work that night. He picks up a passenger in the city. Everything seems normal for a few minutes. Then the passenger shoots him in the head. The city has had killings before, but this one feels different immediately. It happens inside a busy neighborhood street. People lived and walked nearby. A witness sees a man leave the taxi. Officers are called and they start searching. They find the taxi under a street lamp. Blood stains the dashboard and the seat. The scene looks like a simple murder. One cipher stayed unsolved for over 50 years. Another might still be unsolved today. The Zodiac's letters began decades ago. Some notes threatened to bomb school buses. Parents read those notes and froze. They watched their children like guards. Teachers doubled locks on classroom doors. Newspapers printed every single new detail. Headlines screamed across every morning paper. Strangers were never just strangers anymore. Men with mustaches were eyed in grocery stores. A late-night walk felt dangerous. Police received stacks of tips every day. Some tips mattered, many did not. People wanted answers more than facts. The cryptic codes kept attention fixed. Ciphers were drawn like puzzles. Lines and slashes became famous symbols. Then came the grotesque drawings everywhere. They were messy. They were specific. Some pages read like strange philosophy. He wrote about stars and fate. He wrote like someone testing readers. The tone changed from playful to cruel. It was attention he wanted and control. Whole neighborhoods started behaving differently. People avoided parks after dark. Drivers slowed at stop signs. More. A suspicious glance could spark a fight. Detectives chased leads around the clock. Handwriting analysts compared slants and loops. Cryptographers tried math on paper scraps. Hunches became evidence in public minds. Some suspects were followed for months. Friends turned on each other fast. The fear felt contagious and stubborn. School bus threats hit hardest. Parents thought about routes and timings. Children noticed grown-ups whispering more. A rumor about a bus target spread. The state's education offices issued warnings. Security guards rode buses sometimes. This killer loved creating panic. He wrote as if playing a game with real human lives. The ciphers looked like children's puzzles, but adults could not solve them fast. A few ciphers were solved quickly. Those solutions gave short bursts of hope. Then panic returned when leads faded. Amateur sleuths studied every line. Forums formed online decades later. People argued over punctuation and spacing. Some claimed accidental matches for letters. Others thought long patterns revealed identity. Pattern seeking is human nature, remember? And once a pattern forms, it stays. That made the investigation messy and noisy. Experts sifted through hundreds of pages. Some pages came with disturbing sketches. One image looked like a crosshair. Another showed a strange circle and symbols. People read those symbols like scripture. A few letters contained clear threats. Bomb threats frightened bus drivers most. Police increased patrols near school routes. Parents slept less at night, always wary. News cameras stayed on every update. The killer liked the attention. He sent letters that demanded reading. He wanted names spoken on live television. For many, that worked perfectly. Investigators faced false leads constantly. Innocent men became suspects in public. Careers were ruined by accusation alone. Some supposed witnesses changed stories over time. Memory is unreliable under stress. People wanted closure more than truth. Sometimes the unsolved cipher weighed on people. It became a symbol of failure. Modern tools gave new hope later. Computers crunched symbols for hidden patterns. AI tested millions of code combinations. Genetic genealogy helped identify suspects elsewhere. That method changed cold cases worldwide. But Zodiac's case resisted clear answers. No single confession matched every letter. Some investigators believed the ciphers hide identity. Others thought he enjoyed the game. Either way, confusion was part of his power. People still puzzle over his mind today. New enthusiasts join the hunt each year. Towns hold talks about old letters. Universities analyze the ciphers for patterns. Families of victims live with old pain. They hear names mentioned again and again that keeps the past alive. Decades later, fear still lingers. The killer's letters did more than kill. They taught a city to look up. They taught people to suspect neighbors. They taught us fear can spread fast, and they left questions with no answers. People will keep trying to decode him because some stories refuse to stay buried. Hundreds of suspects were investigated. The search lasted decades. Police kept looking for a pattern. One name kept showing up: Arthur Lee. Alan came up often. He fit some witness descriptions. He owned weapons that worried detectives. He allegedly made disturbing comments about killing. Some investigators became convinced he was Zodiac. They focused on him for years. The case files piled up. Interviews were recorded and rechecked. Leads were chased down slowly. Witness memories shifted over time. Some remembered specific clothes or faces. Others only recalled a vague outline. Small details became big reasons to look. A watch with a strange symbol mattered. A certain brand of boots mattered too. Alan had odd things in his life. He lived near places the killer visited. He liked certain puzzles and symbols that made him interesting to investigators. But interest is not proof, and proof was always the problem. Fingerprints did not connect him clearly. Several prints were compared and ruled out. Handwriting experts argued in reports. The Zodiac's letters were strange and messy. Some analysts saw similarities, others saw differences instead. Handwriting analysis never landed cleanly. DNA testing offered hope later on, but the samples were limited. Evidence collection back then was inconsistent. Some items were handled by many people. Contamination became a real issue. The DNA that was taken proved incomplete. It pointed nowhere decisive. That opened room for doubt. Alan always denied involvement. He denied it until his death. He never confessed. He never faced trial for Zodiac. That changed how the case was remembered. Some detectives never stopped believing him. Others moved on to other leads. New suspects kept appearing over time. Some looked convincing at first glance. Others seemed clearly unreliable. A few had strange personal histories. A few had obvious alibis, though. Social media and amateur sleuths joined later. The case attracted obsession. People built theories about who did it. Some theories became wild stories, others focused on tiny clues. None of those theories held up in court. Evidence is what matters in law. The Zodiac remained officially unidentified. No one was charged and convicted. The face of the killer never appeared in court. That lack kept interest alive. It also left families without closure. Loved ones waited decades for answers. They watched each new lead closely. Each headline promised a breakthrough. Few actually provided one. The case grew layers of speculation. Each new theory brought more questions. Detectives kept going back to old files. They re-interviewed witnesses when possible. They re-examined handwriting and physical samples. New techniques sometimes helped. Sometimes they only raised more doubts. Cold case teams hoped for a final link. Forensic science advanced slowly. Some old evidence was reanalyzed. Results were often inconclusive again. The lack of a clear suspect frustrated many. It also created a kind of mythology. The Zodiac became more than a person. He became a name people feared. That fear influenced how the case was covered. Reporters chased dramatic details. True crime fans dove into archive materials. Amateur codebreakers spent nights on ciphers. Most of that work stayed on the margins. Law enforcement kept the official files closed. They shared only some material at times. Families of victims asked for answers. They wanted facts. They wanted accountability. They wanted the truth more than spectacle. Decades passed without a final resolution. The case kept pulling in new investigators. Some brought fresh ideas and methods. Others repeated old mistakes. That pattern repeated across many leads. A promising tip 1 year could evaporate. A suspicious object could turn out innocent. Pressure to name a suspect was constant, but naming without proof would harm people, so investigators moved cautiously. They balanced public pressure and legal standards. That balance often felt slow. To many, it felt painfully slow. To others, it was necessary. Arthur Lee Allen remained central in public debate. He remained only a suspect, not a convict. Other names would surface and fade. The mystery kept its grip on the public imagination. The killer stayed faceless and untouchable. That anonymity became part of the story. It made the case feel unfinished. It made the questions keep coming. Investigators kept marking off leads carefully. They kept hoping for one clear link. One piece of evidence that would not bend. One truth that would finally land. Until that day arrives, the files stay open. The search continues in small ways. New tools, patient work, and luck could change things. The victims' families still deserve answers. They deserve the truth above all else.
40 years passed with no confirmed contact. The letters slowed and then stopped suddenly. Skies over towns stayed ordinary for months. The murders listed as confirmed also stopped. Files sat on desks and gathered dust. Detectives wrote notes, then closed folders. Leads dried up or went nowhere fast. Some believed the killer died young. Others thought prison ended the threat. A few said he might have moved away. But a darker idea spread among officers. Maybe he never left the town at all. Maybe he lived a small, plain life. A neighbor who watered roses each morning. A co-worker who brought coffee to meetings. Someone who said hello at the grocery store. That idea made the case personal again. It made the detectives restless at night. It made families watch other people closely. One report came from a retired cop. He kept a stack of unsolved notes. He said he smelled a pattern again. Another tipster mailed a faded photograph. No proof linked it to the crimes, but the idea would not stop. For years, the case lurched forward slowly. Modern tests returned partial DNA matches. Those matches raised hope, then doubt again. A new book named a suspect. Investigators chased that lead hard. They found nothing conclusive in documents. Citizens debated in forums and bars. Some clung to hope of closure. Others accepted the case might remain open. The media kept replaying old audio. A voice distorted read cold letters. Teenagers shared clips and theories online. A ransom of attention fell to true crime. Victims' families watched with tired faces. They wanted answers more than anything. They feared another name might never come. Police files remained public in some archives. Researchers read old notes by lamplight. They found typos and mismatched dates. Those small things fed a fresh hunt. But every new clue needed proof, and proof stayed stubbornly out of reach. Sometimes suspects confessed to other crimes. They had no link to the Zodiac. People named names at funerals. Some accused neighbors during coffee talks. Rumors spread faster than facts. A few suspects were ordinary men. They had jobs and children and bills. They smiled in photos and posed for holidays. That normalcy made the idea worse. How do you trust the person next door? How do you sleep knowing it possible? Some detectives lived with that doubt. They replayed evidence in quiet apartments. They opened old mail at midnight. Neighbors who once waved now watched closely. Parents questioned who taught at schools. Colleagues who seemed steady came under scrutiny. DNA tests. Tests improved but still left gaps. Some evidence turned out contaminated. Other leads faded with time. Archive boxes held clippings and notes. Photocopies showed letters with shaky penmanship. The handwriting did not match anyone known. Ciphers teased minds for decades. Some were solved, revealing crude taunts. Others remain stubbornly unsolved today. Every unsolved puzzle kept the case alive. It kept curiosity sharp in new generations. Podcasts retold the story with new angles. Hosts interviewed officers and family members. They revisited mistakes and missed chances. Those episodes turned casual listeners into sleuths. Forums compared handwriting and shipping labels. Amateur detectives mapped possible routes. They imagined him walking ordinary streets. The most chilling idea stayed simple. He never faced court for those crimes. He might have died without confession. He might have spent years behind bars. He might have lived quietly, unnoticed. Maybe he fixed a leaking sink each morning. Maybe he took the same bus to work. Maybe he got invited to block parties. We picture faces, but hold no proof. That uncertainty gnaws at people daily. Victim families live with that hollow space. They mourn for answers that never came. They fear the thought of ordinary evil. It makes the crimes harder to forget. Because if Zodiac was never caught, then technically he escaped punishment. He avoided a trial and a sentence. He carried secrets to his grave, maybe, or he aged in a chair, content. Either idea makes the cold knot tighten. The possibility that he lived unnoticed terrifies, because justice depends on being found. And when hunters fail, society feels small. We test new methods and hope. We re-examine clippings and old photographs. We tell the story to remember victims. We keep the case alive on purpose, because forgetting would let him vanish completely. And technically, that would be getting away. We refuse that outcome for as long. So we keep asking questions and digging. We do it for answers and for memory, and for the hope someone will finally say, then technically he got away with everything.
50 years have passed without a conviction. The murders stopped, but questions never went away. He wrote letters to taunt detectives and reporters. He sent gifts and ciphers with puzzles inside. Some people solved parts, but most remained baffled. Police had suspects, leads, and dead ends. Witness memories changed over time. Evidence was sloppy, lost, or degraded. Files gathered dust in locked rooms. The killer picked a ritual. He repeated patterns. 4 attacks faded into news cycles. Then came letters claiming more victims. He used symbols like a signature. People traced that cross-circle symbol everywhere. Some called him Zodiac. The name stuck. It became a brand for fear. Kids joked about it at school. Adults still felt an old chill. Cold cases reopened. Old detectives talked. Amateurs turned hobby into obsession. They fed message boards late at night. Someone claimed they cracked the final code. Proof was thin, and quickly disputed DNA changed the game decades later. Old smudges gave new leads. Some names rose, then fell again. Lawyers, lovers, and neighbors whispered possibilities. Every theory had holes you could drive through. The ciphers promised secrets nobody could read. One cipher fooled professionals for years. A college student claimed partial victory. He announced a name, and the internet erupted. Old detectives were skeptical but curious. Families learned names anew with pain. Some welcomed answers, some wanted privacy. Media chased every hint like freight trains. Shows, podcasts, and nights of debate followed. The killer became a subject you could binge. That made murder entertainment oddly normalized. Victims turned into plot points in threads, but their lives were short, real, and messy. They had names beyond headlines and symbols. One detective kept a small, folded note. It had a date and a phone number. He swore he never forgot the voice. Old evidence boxes smell of cedar and decay. Records show hand-filed reports and coffee stains. Someone wrote a confession and mailed it. They signed with a symbol, not a name. That symbol became a small, terrifying logo. Detectives felt pressure from press and politicians. Leads were sensationalized, evidence was ignored. Sometimes the wrong man nearly paid the price. People want closure even when facts resist. A retired officer kept a suspect file. He watched a photo until sleep came. Neighbors described a quiet, tidy man. No one remembers a perfect alibi. Alibis fray under new questions. The internet created a new kind of witness. Strangers claimed expertise with bad evidence. They spun theories like late-night radio. Some theories used handwriting and blood patterns. Expertise came with caveats. No one recalled. The truth may hide in plain paperwork. A single misplaced report can block progress. Clerks move boxes. Boxes lose labels. Cold case units grow and shrink with budgets. Passion moves. Files to basements sometimes. A clue might sit unread for years or sit in plain sight, misfiled and ignored. Think about the cipher again. It looks like nonsense at first, then patterns begin to itch in your head. Language has fingerprints you can measure. Cryptographers found letters that repeat oddly, but the message may deliberately mislead readers. He loved control over how people feared him. The mystery feeds itself generation after generation. New technologies reveal hair and soil traces, but DNA needs context to point fingers. A match in a database still needs proof, and proof can be contaminated easily. Survivors live with small, sharp memories. They remember a laugh or a shirt pattern. Those details matter more than clicks. A killer whose ego craved attention remains unclaimed. He built a myth out of random violence, and that myth outlived the bodies. Some investigators say the case is solvable. Others say it is sealed by time. But history keeps sending small clues forward. A shoebox, a ledger, a faint print. More than 50 years later, the question remains. The Zodiac Killer is still one of America's unsolved mysteries, officially linked to at least 5 murders. He may have been responsible for many more. He turned fear into performance and spectacle. He turned murder into a public show. Somewhere in boxes and ciphers, the truth waits. If you have an idea, leave it below. Who do you think the Zodiac really was? Write your theory in the comments right now. Subscribe to the Hidden Archives for more mysteries. We dig into cases still missing answers. See you in the next file.